Reimagining Success, episode 166. You're listening to Reimagining Success, the podcast where we help you reimagine your future, designing a life and career beyond the 9 to 5 that allows you the freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment that you've been dreaming of. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg. Now, let's get started on those dreams. Okay, hello everybody. So for this month's interview, I'm here with Simran Kaur, and I'm really excited. I've found her relatively recently on Instagram, Sim and Sonia, who you'll hear more about, I think, in a few minutes. But Sim, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, you're at the other end of the world to me, so we're about to go to bed. You've just started your day, but I appreciate you joining to share your story. And I'd love to dive straight in and ask you, because I know it was very recent for you, but what were you doing before in your so-called 9 to 5, and what are you doing now?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, first of all. It's such an honour to be here. I had a very interesting change in careers. I started off as an optometrist, nothing to do with money, nothing to do with finance. I had a huge personal hobby with personal finance and investing. And I kind of started sharing that online. I took a certificate in financial markets for my own learning. Mm-hmm. And that kind of led to what Girls That Investors, which is, a podcast, an Instagram account, and a course where we just literally teach young women and women of all ages really about investing and what it is. And it just blew up, and here I am now doing it full time.
Amazing. Well, congratulations for taking that step, and congratulations on the amazing results. I know you are number one business podcast and all sorts of incredible results in quite a short space of time, I guess. If you go back then, it sounds like it came very organically from an interest, as you said, that you pursued. Did you have an inkling? Were you planning this is going to be my empire when you started that? Or was it very much, accidental and just because of the incredible response you've had, it's sort of grown out of that?
I think it was maybe 50-50. Like I have always kind of been that, like when I was younger, that kid that was like, what can I do? What business can I own? And I've always kind of had the side hustles in university. And so with this, I kind of always had an idea, like I wanted to do something in the financial space because I just, from my own experiences, never experienced that. There was no, woman that I could learn from. Everything was very, we kind of use the term finance bro-y, which is, the guys in the vests that are like kind of yelling at the screen about what you should and shouldn't do. And obviously, I didn't engage with that very well. And I always wished like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if there was just a community of women that would speak about investing in stocks and real estate? Because lots of women do those things. We just don't speak about them, and it's very taboo. So that's kind of where the organic side came from, just having the interest, but also knowing that I did want to eventually, do something outside of my 9 to 5. I think I love the idea of working in a way where the amount of input I put into my work gives more, output, and I'm kind of in control of that. Whereas in a 9 to 5, it is, 9 to 5.
Yeah. And sometimes not 9 to 5, but there's definitely a ceiling, isn't there? You can work harder and harder, but it's not that the income from that necessarily is going to be exponential as you work. There is a limit, isn't there? And then there's risks of burnout and so on. So first of all, so important. And I agree, I didn't have any of that education from, I think, my family. Money is often a topic that parents argue about. And if I think about it, the books I've read have been male authors, or possibly more sort of on the mindset, all this kind of, to help women feel better about money. But I love that you have the really tangible investing advice, very down to earth, very, I want to say almost easy, but it's not easy, but it's something that we can all learn, right? So I think it's a really powerful message. What was it that led you then to go all in? So it was November 2021, right, that you quit that 9 to 5. So was there anything around that moment that really made you think, wow, yes, this is definitely something I'm now going to pursue and leave this other career behind?
Yeah, so the way it kind of happened was quite organic. I had the free podcast, the free Instagram for about 18 months, I want to say. And that was it was a very good thing to do now, looking back at it. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. You don't expect these things. But it had built such a great, genuine community, and a community of people that knew that we were there to help, and we were there just to share our knowledge and our information. And it got to the stage where we were like, okay, I think like I'm ready to monetize this and I'm ready to put out an offer. We had done like, sponsorships here and there, but nothing that would, I guess, be substantial enough to quit my job. And I had sort of side hustles on the side that were bringing in income as well. And I kind of wanted to put everything together that we taught and turn it into a course, because we were having so many people that were kind of like, thanks for the podcast. It's helpful, but I'm kind of listening to it when I'm washing, my laundry or when I'm driving. And so it's a very passive form of listening, and I don't always, take it all in. Mm-hmm. And other people were saying, I wrote like notes and notes and notes sitting down, listening to your podcast. And so it was kind of a natural transition to go, okay, we should probably start doing some video format where people can see what we're talking about. How can we do that? How can we kind of give people a step-by-step approach? Because even by listening to the podcast, a lot of people still say that they felt scared and they weren't quite ready to, take that next step. So that's kind of when the course came out, and I did a pre-sale. So I hadn't, filmed and edited and had like a very crisp, course ready. I just wanted to gauge what people would even be interested in. And it did very well. And I put in my notice.
Amazing. Well, it sounds, again, very organic. And I often tell my clients to build that audience. As you said, it's sort of hindsight is 2020, but actually warming them up, building that community before you start throwing things to sell at them is really powerful. I think it requires a bit of patience, maybe, because some of us, if we want to quit our jobs quickly, maybe want to monetize right away. So good for you for providing that value for a long time, so that then there was an obvious need, as you said, to produce that. And what were your other side hustles then? Are they unrelated to the business you're doing now?
Yeah, so before all of this, I actually run a very strong feminist community on Instagram called The Indian Feminist. It's got 300,000 followers. So it's a nice large thing there. But we did merchandise and shirts and tote bags and such. But a community like that, it just didn't feel personally, and I know everyone's different, it didn't feel too right to monetize that too much, because it is a community about, feminism. You don't really want to be, charging high ticket items for something like that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's incredible to have that platform as well, and kind of a portfolio of different outlets for your expression. So congratulations on that as well. It sounds like you're very poised, very successful. Everything's gone very well. I have to poke a little bit and ask, what were the challenges, both from your own internal perspective in terms of maybe confidence or mindset, and also anything else that you found difficult now in the first months, I guess, but now especially as you start to monetize?
So many challenges. Like I definitely not as easy as maybe I think I have short-term memory loss, where I forget just how hard and crazy and stressful it was at the time.
It's probably a good thing, isn't it, to help you to keep going? Otherwise you'd wallow in the tragedy of the difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Girls and Best, initially, it was just a fun project, so there weren't too many challenges. I think the biggest challenge at the start was just having the mindset of a successful business while still being a very small business. And so that's something that's always worked well for me with the Indian Feminist, with this, when we go into it, we don't go in being like, only a couple of hundred people listen. There's no need to edit it, the podcast well. There's no need to create high quality content. But we went in and kind of spoke with an energy as if, people were listening and we did have something worth saying. And that worked out quite well. But that was also a challenge because we work a 9 to 5, and my co-host Sonia. So Sonia jumps in for the podcast once a week, and then that's kind of her role. And she'll edit with me sort of time to time as well. And so, it's not easy, one, doing something like that outside of your work hours, but also two, trying to rope your best friend into also sort of helping you on your journey. There were definitely times at the start where we would not agree with the level of output. And I had to learn very quickly that this is my passion, this is my baby, and no one else is really and understandably going to put in the same effort that you are.
That's a really interesting one, actually. I often have people wanting to, I'm very sort of, I don't want to say a loner, but I like to work by myself. I'm very self-motivated and I get on quite well by myself, but a lot of people want to have a co-founder and so on. And as you say, there are different challenges, I guess, when you bring someone else on, having the same level of time, energy, the exact same vision. You can bring so much to the table with different people, but obviously it can be hard too. I love what you said about already sort of projecting yourself into the future success when you start. Again, that's kind of challenging because it makes me think, oh, you've got to invest in all the equipment and tools and editing and so on. But at the same time, thinking big, I think, as you said, really allows you to produce the quality and to have the confidence rather than just to, as you say, undermine what you're doing, I suppose, thinking it's quite small. So how have you overcome some of these challenges then? Any particular sources of support in terms of friends, mentors? I know you mentioned you did the course in finance, obviously, and so on. But apart from that, where have you got the help and support you've needed?
I think I've been quite lucky where I have had quite strong support systems. So my best friends, my family, and they are very honest people, and they will tell me when I start to derail a little bit, is probably the best way of putting it. So, you know, as an entrepreneur, I think a lot of us, when we speak about success, it's kind of like a never-ending goal, and you kind of reach your goal and then onto the next one and onto the next one. And that's very much my personality. And so I'd often have friends be like, you know, slow down. Are you ever going to be happy? And so I've had a lot of challenges in that regard. And with, you know, working with Sonia, because we've been best friends for 20 years and, you know, we're 25, so a big chunk of our life, we can have honest conversations and sort of sit down and say, well, okay, well, XYZ isn't working. Let's put some plans into place. And I guess, I'm very similar. I would regard myself as someone that's really good at just working by myself. And so working alongside someone, it's really great now. And we've been able to have such a great kind of business relationship now, but it was just a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error and a lot of little best friend tips.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess that comes with the territory, mixing business with pleasure. But that's great that you've been able to do that. And I guess a lot of us are the same in terms of chasing that next goal. And my whole idea around success is exactly that. In fact, I had a couple of episodes on the podcast the last few weeks on enjoying the journey and not thinking so much in black and white terms as well. I guess thinking, oh, if I only get to the 100K, then if only and then once I quit my, you know, there's always that next thing chasing. So it sounds amazing that you've got, as you say, the support system of people to ground you. And I hope you're enjoying it along the way, which leads me to my next question, which is, how are you enjoying this lifestyle? What are you most enjoying now about managing your business, your community, and not having that 9 to 5? And what's the best part of both work and pleasure, I suppose?
I honestly love it so much. Like I'm still, because it's only been like 3-4 months, I'm still in that mindset of like, is this real? Is this real life? Like, is the rug going to be pulled under me? And am I going to have to go back? And I think there's so many things about this that I love, but I think the number one thing would be the freedom and the flexibility. I loved my old job. I loved the people I worked with. The people were great, but it was a very sort of strict job in the sense that you had to be physically there at all times. And if you needed a doctor's appointment, you needed to go and do something, you know, you had to then block out a time in your schedule. And if someone was booked in to see you, that affects them as well. And so you often wouldn't. And there'd be a lot of just working around your schedule, and it wouldn't be very easy. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm 25 and this is hard. Well, what am I going to do when I have kids? What am I going to do when I need flexibility and I, you know, have a sick child and I need to go home and like take care of them, yet feel guilty for my poor employer and the poor patients that I'm not going to be able to see? I think for some people, it's not really a bother. They deal with it really well. I just knew that I wasn't one of those people. So I think just the freedom to just be like, you know what, I'm going to go and grab a cup of coffee and I can do that. And it's just amazing. The little things.
It is a little thing, but it's also a massive thing, right? Freedom in the little things, in the moments. I had a client today who said, I can bake scones in the middle of the day, which is, you know, if that's what you want to do, but also the bigger picture, as you said, maybe going traveling or having kids in the future. So that's really powerful. In terms of, and you've already given a few tips, but I guess what advice might you give to someone who's possibly right at the beginning of that journey, they have an inkling, maybe like you, they've had a few different things, nothing's really taken off, or, what words of wisdom might you share with someone in your position a couple of years back, I suppose?
I think one misconception I used to have was that I would start when I felt ready. And even to this day, when we launch, we're currently going through a launch, you never feel 100% ready. You might feel 60% ready, maybe 70%, but you'll always have a level of fear of the unknown, because that's just human nature. You don't know what's going to happen, and therefore that's scary. And so if I was speaking to anyone that was at the start, and they, I think we all kind of know things that we are slightly better at than other people. And that might be, photography for someone. It might be CV writing. You might be that friend everyone comes to that's really good at fixing, their grammatical errors. Everyone has like skills that they can do. And it's just a matter of believing that you can then go ahead and take that further, because you'll never be 100% ready. It's not going to happen. But if you just get started step by step, I mean, Girls That Invest Now is 100,000 community, member group on Instagram, yet we used to have 6 followers. I remember those days, and I would still put out content because the idea is that eventually it becomes something.
That's incredibly inspiring, and I think a lot of listeners will be at that 6 follower level, I suppose, given that you've built those 2 incredible communities, the 300k and now the 100. Any other tips specifically there in terms of, as you say, showing up as if you're bigger, I suppose, but anything else in terms of what creates something that will build into such an amazing community that you've now built twice?
I think another thing that has always worked for me is, again, kind of going in with the mindset of like, this is going to be a community, and therefore kind of speaking that way. And so engaging with everyone that engages in your content, replying to people. I would spend a lot of time on Instagram just jumping on, speaking to other people that were doing what I was doing, and they might have had like 10,000 followers, I might have had 10, but I was still out there, building those connections. And I think the number one kind of secret sauce to growing accounts quite quickly for me is just creating content that is feel-good content and that is shareable. So things that are like hot tips or 3 things I learned, and things that people want to then send to their friends or put on their story, and therefore, you reach an even wider audience. That is really it. It's very simple. Well, it's simple to say now, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all looking for that secret sauce, aren't we? But I do find your posts also very inclusive and community-based. You feel like you're part of that community following you. I really enjoy that. It's not just, the messaging back and forth and commenting, which is amazing. But I think there's something about what you're posting that also feels like you have that community in mind to begin with. So you're doing a good job. Well done. Oh. So yeah, elevating beyond, I guess, your specific journey, leaving the 9 to 5 and working for yourself, all of us face money challenges and possibly almost definitely don't have the expertise that you've now amassed in terms of personal finance and so on. So any little nuggets or advice you might give to us as we let go of that 6-figure salary and the pension and the security and so on, and what we should be thinking about, not specific stock investing tips, but rather mindset, or how should we approach this whole topic?
It's a really good question, because like when I was working, it was very stable job, very stable salary, and a really good salary for someone that, was a graduate. And so there's like this term, golden handcuffs, which I'm sure you're really familiar with. For anyone that's listening that isn't aware, it's the idea that your job pays great and it kind of makes you want to stay because the pay is really good. And so therefore kind of golden handcuffs. What for me, I was very aware that I needed to have a lot of stability before I fully quit. And I think I took that a little bit too far. I think I held on to my job a lot longer than I needed to. I definitely could have left sooner, but part of me, just was so scared because I didn't know anyone that had done anything like this. I had all my friends and family just be like, why are you still working? And there was one day when I was updating my LinkedIn and I was kind of looking at all the different things I did, like freelancing here and doing this and content creation and of course, Girls That Invest and the Indian Feminist and then optometrist. And I was like, one of these does not look like the other. And I really need to cut my losses and kind of move forward. But yeah, I think more than anything, the best thing that I did was just list out, what I was making, because I think at that time I wasn't really keeping good track. So listing out what I was making and then listing out what I kind of expected for the next year. But most importantly, listing what my expenses were. And I think I got this from a YouTube video where someone explained, write down what you need to survive. What's your mortgage? Because I do have a mortgage. And so that was a little bit stressful for me. What's your mortgage? What's your bills? What would you need to just get by? And if you can make that through your business, or if you're making it through your business, you can technically leave. You'll still have a roof over your head. You'll still have food to feed yourself. And I know I speak from a place of privilege because I don't have children. I don't have other responsibilities. So for me, it was just me. And I think maybe it's a bit harder if, there are other people reliant on you for income. But I was happy to take that leap of faith and know that worst case scenario, if I have to sell my house, I'd never want to, but if I had to, am I, going to die? No, I'll be okay.
So many important ideas there. So the worst case scenario, exactly that. Often we catastrophize. And actually, if we sit down and think about it, again, being quite privileged, if we have family and friends who can help us out, and worst case, we will probably get another job. That's kind of not so terrible. And as you said, that constant tension, I guess, between how long do you stay in your job, how much saving do you need before you leave? And it sounds like you were very sensible and obviously had this very promising business to turn to and those other streams as well. I, like you, was very single and very free when I quit. So I had no obligations and I then relied on my savings, which was stressful in itself. And that can cause other problems. So there's always that choice of, how long you stay before you go all in. And there's also a limit, I think. It sounds like you have an incredible time management skill there, that you're able to juggle all those things. But if you have a really heavy corporate so-called 9 to 5, that of course is never 9 to 5, and you're trying to build something up, even just working with clients, obviously, if they're only available weekdays, for example, it's not possible to juggle that alongside. So there is a point at which people have to make that decision to go all in. And as you said, it's really up to you in terms of your specific situation. But I loved your very simple but very powerful advice of actually sitting down and looking at the numbers, because I think that's one of the things we just put our head in the sand, don't we? Oh, I'm not good with numbers. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I need the salary and I don't have, and then without actually sitting down, and hopefully we'll be pleasantly surprised as to where we can cut costs and how much we actually need. And probably it's less than we actually think we do, don't we? So that's excellent advice. And of course, we'll direct people to your podcast and your Instagram as well. And can you just, as we wrap up, tell us a little bit more about, so now exactly what is Girls That Invest? What is the business model, I guess? And then, of course, how can people find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. So Girls That Invest, we're basically an online learning platform for women and men and anyone that kind of feels like the traditional way of learning about investments and learning about finances is, not as accessible and not as inclusive. So we are a podcast. We're a number one podcast in the money space. We have a very sweet, probably like what I would consider my child Instagram community, which is 100,000 people strong. And it's really great. We put out a lot of content there. And then we have our masterclass. And so when people are ready to then take that step and actually dive into becoming an investor, a long-term passive investor, that's where the masterclass comes in. And yeah, that's very, very simple. I guess I kind of like to keep it that way.
Sounds like it's working for you. Thank you so much, Sim. So we'll link to those in the notes. But thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for sharing. And congratulations on taking some kind of leap of faith, but having built an incredible community and platform to leap onto. So looking forward to seeing what you do with the platform. And I'm sure there'll be other new ideas coming out as well. So best of luck. And yeah, here's to a successful 2022.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I think honestly, like these kinds of things, these kinds of podcast platforms, they're so great because not everyone wants the 9 to 5. Some people do, that's fine. But it's just so good to hear other people's stories, how they did it. And yeah, really love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's the stories. And then there are different aspects, as we've talked about. There's the mindset piece, there's the money piece, which you look at, and so on. There's so many considerations. And it's great to hear the commonalities between all the people I've spoken to around the world, that we're all very much experiencing and going through similar things. And then the things that we create are so exciting and different. So it's my favourite part of doing this work. So thanks so much again, Sim, and looking forward to sharing this with the audience. I hope people enjoyed it. Thank you.
If you'd like to create your own transition story and escape the 9 to 5 to work for yourself, then come and join us over in the Business Incubator. This is a comprehensive online program and community designed to give you the roadmap that you need to help you figure out what you really want to do, come up with a workable plan, and take the right steps to achieve it. Read more and join us over on onestepoutside.com/9 to 5. That's onestepoutside.com/9 to 5.